They wouldn't let poor Rudolph join in any reindeer games. Then one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight? Then all the reindeer loved him. Hi, I'm Bonner. In my last lesson, we introduced a lot of song learning basics as we worked through the chorus of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. If you're a beginner, here's a link to that video up here. And please have a look at that earlier lesson before you go on, because it'll really help you out. And it'll establish some really important fundamentals. This lesson is entirely focused on just the B part. So, then one foggy Christmas Eve, the section that starts there. As you can see on the screen, this section of Rudolph has a couple of new chords. So as always, we'll begin with a quick review of the chords just to get familiar with them in case you don't already know them. For simplicity, we're going to have a quick look at the chords in the sequence that they occur. And this is a speed learning tip, especially for beginners. Every time you learn a new song, use the song as a practice outline. So focus on just learning the chords that are in the song. Learn the song section by section and review the chords or notes or whatever it is that you're learning. Practice the chord changes, for example, in the same order they occur in the song. It makes everything more relevant and it makes it easier to stick in your mind. Okay? So you can see here the chords in this section are an F chord, a C, a D minor, a G7, a G sharp diminished, an A minor, a D7. Okay, let's just have a close look at those chords. So let's just have a quick look at these chords. You already know some of these, but we're just going to review just in case. Here's the F chord. We're just going to play a non-barred version or just a partially barred version. We're going to try and bar the first two skinny strings on F. Okay, and then the C chord, which you have seen before. Okay, there's your C chord. Here's the D minor chord. As you can see, it's a new chord, but it's very, very easy. A little bit like the G7. Here's the G7 chord, which we learned in the last lesson. The next one is the C chord, which we've already looked at. And I'm just reviewing these chords in the sequence that they occur in this section of the song so that we start to get we start to develop a mindset of looking at the chords in sequence and knowing which chord is coming next. Okay, then the G chord. And we're going to play the G chord in this song. We're going to play the G chord just like we play the G7. And what I mean by that is with this grip here. With this, it's kind of a more advanced grip where we use the pinky. Like that. Just because it suits us to do that and it saves us some efficiency. Next is the G sharp diminished chord, and that's this one here. And it's not nearly as complicated as it seems. And it's pretty easy to play. So I'll take you through that in detail. Here's the A minor chord. And the A minor is a lot like the C chord, as you'll notice in a minute. Now we have the D7 chord. And the D7 chord is quite a bit like the D minor chord. We're going to go over that in detail. Here's the D7. And the last chord we have is the G7 chord. And this is the G7 chord we've played before. Okay? So that seems like a lot of chords, but you already know two of them. So really all we're learning is F, D minor, and D7, G, which is a lot like the G7 you already know. The G sharp diminished is a weirdo, but it's easy to play. And the A minor chord, which is a lot like the C chord. To make it even more manageable, we're just going to look at one line at a time. So don't be intimidated. You got this. Let's start off with our first line, which only contains F and C chord. Okay? So we've looked at those chords briefly. Let's look at the motions to get from one chord to another. Okay? So here's our F chord, or let's just keep it simple. You know what? Pointer across the two skinny strings, middle on the G string, and ring on the D string. And there's our chord. If you can't hold down the two skinny strings, I do have barring lessons and F chord lessons on my channel, but if you want to get going, Quickly, one of the things you can do is just hold down the B string and just let the edge of your finger mute the skinny E string. It'll make this sound. And when you strum the chord, it's going to be missing that top note, but it'll still be perfectly usable and very, very quick and easy for you to play. Okay, now we're going to go to the C chord. Here's how we move there. We take these two fingers off just a little, ring and middle, leave the pointer where it is, and you're just going to take each of these two fingers up by one string. And we've just rotated like a little windshield wiper motion. And there we are on the C. And to go back to F, we just lift those two fingers and bump them down by one string. Now they're on D, G, and the pointer's still on B, and there's your F chord. We're back to F. Review the strumming for line 1. Okay, so line 1 is F and then C. Line 1 is F and then C. So I'm going to play it like this. My bass note for the F is going to be my D string, because we're playing this a simplified, possibly not barred F chord. So I'm going to play the D string for my bass note for the F chord, and when I go to the C, my A string is going to become the bass note. And here's what I'm playing. Step 1, I pluck the root note of the chord. Then I play 2 and on just the top 2 or 3 strings. And then I play the bass note again for the next beat. And then I play the little triplet. So it's 1, 2, and 1, 2 is a, 1, 2, and 1, 2 is a. And when I play that, that's called one pattern. 1, 2, and 1, 2 is a. And then I move my left hand to the C chord, and I just play the same pattern again, but now on the C chord, and now my bass note is the A string. There you go, that's line 1. So try and follow along with me. Here we go. Then one foggy Christmas Eve. And that's line 1. These are the chords in the second line of the song. Okay, so in the second line, we start off with the D minor chord, and that looks like this. Pointer on the E string, middle on the G string on the middle on the G string on the 2nd fret, and ring finger on the B string on the 3rd fret. And that's our D chord. The bass note on this is just the open D string. And here's our motions to get this to the G7 chord. Start here. You're on your D minor. Just lift these two fingers, ring and middle, leave the pointer where it is, but no pressure on your fingers right now. And just rub those fingers up so that the middle finger goes up to the A string and the ring finger goes up to the low E string. And there's your G7, which you should recognize by now from the first lesson. Okay, and then to get back to D minor, we just relax those two fingers again, and we just drag those fingers down till middle is on the G string and ring is on the B string again, and then we squish down and we're back on D minor. Okay, so that's D minor to G7 and back again. So after that we go from G7 to the C, which you already know very well from the last lesson, so we don't need to review those motions. So let's look at our strumming on line 2. A review of our strumming for line 2, but again what I want you to notice in the strumming of line 2 is that we're splitting up that pattern across the first 2 chords. So 1, 2, and 1, 2 is a. That's how we count that, and here's how it's going to sound. Santa came to say. Okay, I'll do it again. Santa came to say. Okay, just go over these slowly and carefully until they feel a little bit more comfortable. Okay, so here in line 3, our changes are the G chord and the G sharp diminished 7. Okay, so here we go. Here on G, which is the grip we already know from playing the G7. Okay, you're gonna lie your pointer down beside D, G, and B string, so it's resting on top. Take your pinky off, relax middle and ring, and just slide your pointer over all the way onto the 3rd fret, holding down the D, G, and B string very gently at first. So your finger's right beside, and you'll find it easier if you kind of lie the finger on its side rather than try and press down with the front. You can see the angle my finger's at, it's kind of leaning back. Put your middle finger on the low E string, and your ring finger is going to scrunch in there onto the G string. Now what we're doing is we're not really playing the A string. So what I'm doing is I'm letting the belly of my middle finger lie on the A string to keep it quiet. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to strum this, and that's a G sharp diminished 7. So really the only strings I'm actually holding down are the low E, and then D with the pointer, G with the ring, and B with the pointer as well. So you just kind of squish them in for a second, and that's your G sharp diminished 7. So again, here's that's the motion to come over, and to go back, all we do is slide your pointer back to where it came from, reach over here with your ring finger, put your middle finger on the A string on the 2nd fret, pinky back down on the high E string, and there's your G. So there's your G, and then to step forward to the G sharp diminished, lie your pointer down, relax these two fingers, slide pointer over so it's resting on D, G, and B, and roll it onto its side. Put your middle finger up on the low E string, ring finger on the G string on the 4th fret, and then squish down, and there's your diminished chord. And again, line 3 is rhythmically simple. We're just playing the G chord for one pattern and the G sharp diminished 7 chord for one pattern. So I'm just going to show you that so you can see how we're doing that. So our G chord first, then our G sharp diminished 7 chord, and that's it. That's the strumming for that 3rd line. And your G sharp diminished chord some of the notes might not be perfectly clear and crisp at first. Don't worry about that. With a little bit of practice, it's just going to clean itself up. As you can see, this line has 3 chords again, just like line 2 did. First, let's look at the chords and the chord changes. Here's the A minor chord. And what I want you to notice is 2 of the notes are just the same as the C chord that we already know. The only note that's different is the ring finger. Instead of on the C chord, the ring finger's up here. On the A minor chord, the ring finger's down here on the G string. So we sort of almost know the A minor chord already because we know our C. We're on A minor, which is a lot like C. To get down to the D7, here's what we do. Pointer's going to stay where it is. I'm going to drag my ring finger down to the edge of the guitar and put it on the 2nd fret of the E string. Right above it, on the G string, I'm going to put my middle finger. My pointer's already in place on the B string, and then I just strum from the D string down, and there's my D7. To go backwards from D7, I just lift up ring and middle. I rotate them up, and I put middle finger on the D string, ring finger on the G string, and the pointer still stays where it is. And now I'm back on an A minor. Again, so to go back from D7 to A minor, pointer stays where it is again. I just lift up ring and middle. I reach up with middle until it's on the D string, tuck the ring finger in right underneath it on the G string, and now I'm back on A minor. Okay? And then my last chord change is to go from D7 to G7. Okay? So to go for, that's the end of the 4th line. Here I am on D7. Now this one takes a little bit of practice. It's not tricky, but you kind of have to move quickly. So here you are on D7. To get to the G7, here's what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to relax the whole hand. I'm going to quickly slip the pointer finger down by 1 string. Now the pointer's on the high E string. Then I'm going to relax these 2 fingers. I'm just going to reach up like this, like I always do for a G7. Middle finger onto the 2nd fret of the A string, ring finger way over here on the 3rd fret of the E string. Okay, there I am on the G7 again. And to review going backwards, because we like to practice all of these forwards and backwards, so I'm going to relax these 2 fingers, middle and ring. I'm going to quickly hop my pointer back onto the B string so I have a rotation point. I'm going to drag my ring finger down to the high E string on the 2nd fret, and then drop my middle finger in on the 2nd fret of the G string. And now I'm back on D7. And those are all our chord changes for this song. Line 4 of the B section is this A minor to D7. We've just reviewed those chords. Now I'm going to go over the strumming. Again, it's the same strumming as line 2. So it's going to be half the pattern for A minor, the second half of the pattern for D7, and then the whole pattern for G7. Here it goes, A minor, and then back to the G7. And if I sing it, it's going to go like this. Won't you guide my sleigh tonight? So now I'm going to take you through one line at a time so that you can review these. Okay, so first line 1, starting on the F. In one foggy Christmas Eve. That's line 1. Line 2, starting on the D minor. Santa came to say. Then line 3, G to G sharp diminished 7. Rudolph with your nose so bright. And then here's line 4, which we just looked at. Won't you guide my sleigh tonight? So today we learned the B part of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Between this lesson and the previous lesson, which introduced the chorus, you have learned the main parts of the whole song. I hope you had fun, and I hope you're able to play the whole song very soon. You should be able to. Whatever faith you hold, or wherever you are in the world, I wish you all a wonderful holiday season. If you're having fun with these lessons, please subscribe to the channel. It's free, and it helps me a lot with YouTube. Thanks. I'm Bonner, and I hope you'll visit Bonner Guitar again soon.